at Metropole TVKE across your social media platforms. I'm at Kiagesim, but this is your official economic review. Let's tell you exactly what it is that you are waking up to this morning in terms of your biggest economic headlines. And let me take this time to introduce our panel that is joining us this morning. We're joined by George Manga, who's an economic analyst and managing partner, AMG Kenya. George, good morning, sir.
Morning, Elijah. How are you doing?
Oh, we're doing okay. It's not that cold today, so it's promising to be a good day. Let me cross over to Tommy Wendell. Tommy, how are you doing, sir?
Good morning, Elijah.
Happy to have you around, sir. It's a good morning. We are also joined by Effie Otieno, who's a real estate research analyst. Effie, good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. Happy to have you around. Actually, let's begin with you, Effie, this morning. Now, the National Land Commission, NLC, has flagged the state's plan to buy their property as compensation for the construction of the expressway. National Land Commissioner Acting Chief Executive Kabale Etache told Parliament last week that it has established that the properties listed by the Kenya National Highways Authority, KENHA, for compensation were road reserves and buffer zones after it did its inquiry before compensation. Now, the land in question is part of 81 parcels earmarked for KENHA for the Nairobi Expressway, which stretches from Malalango Junction to James Gishuru Road. Now, the compensation valued at 2.01 billion shillings is positioned next to each other. And on both sides of Mombasa Road, they stretch from City Cabanas interchange to Southern Bypass. This even as the Kenya National Highways Authority Director General Peter Mundinia had earlier accused the Commission of remaining adamant despite numerous notifications that the 17 parcels were public lands. Right, so that's the National Land Commission and the Kenya National Highways Authority were blaming each other for that mix-up, because the Kenya National Highways Authority is saying, we told the National Lands Commission that, well, the 17 properties are for the government, so the government doesn't need to pay for it. Effie, let's understand this morning. When is it really very difficult to know which land belongs to who in Kenya? Effie, can you confirm you can get me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Fantastic. So that was your question. Let me ask it again for the sake of our audience listening this morning. How difficult is it at a time when we do have a digital lands registry system in the country to know which land belongs to who, which property belongs to who?
Definitions of what is public land,
yes,
what is private land, and what is a communal land. So here, for public land, this is land set aside for reserves, forest, national parks, and the likes, just for general use.
yes.
And then we have the private land. What brings the difference here is clear rules and regulations that govern the usage of this land. So there's a clear distinction between what public land is and private land is, but the clear regulations governing or determining what a public land is and a private land is what is not clear to most people.
Yes. Wait a minute, Effie, you're mentioning something very important, that the laws governing the use of public and private land is not exactly what is clear to most people. I mean, why, Effie, is that not clear? When in reality, what we're talking about, Effie, this morning is somebody wants the government to pay for their land.
I think there's the issue of not revising the laws. We have not had a system where the laws are revised frequently
Yes.
to be updated to the current conditions or events that are happening. So
Yes.
I think there's also the aspect of doing due diligence before listing whether land is in public or private, because there's that definition that this is public land and there's this
Yes.
definition that is private land. But you have to do due diligence to understand why you cannot build or you cannot categorize your property as private, or why you cannot distinguish it from public land.
Yes. So Effie, in terms of real estate, when we're trying to pin this to somebody, whose fault is it really for people not to understand that specific distinction?
I wouldn't want to pinpoint or directly say that this is the fault of, okay, like looking at this scenario, we have the National Land Commissions here.
Yes.
And Kenha having a battle. One is had listed some land and wants to sell public land
Yes.
for purposes of constructing the expressway. So I don't want to blame the two parties, but what is clear here, they didn't do the due diligence to before listing out the specific parcels of land to either categorize them as in terms of public or
Yes.
private.
Pretty much. Effie, let me see if Tommy Randall this morning, who's a policy analyst, is going to have a way to get back at you. Because Effie, you're saying you want to play safe and look at the confusion that exists in the usage of public and private. Tommy, do you share the same sentiment with Effie that indeed you can pin it on someone, that you would only pin it on that distinction of usage?
Let's start here.
Yes.
The person with the mandate of registering land is the Ministry of Lands.
Yes.
The Ministry of Lands and the National Land Commission should work hand in hand. As in regards to those 17 parcels of land being public land, any of these parties needed to do their due diligence and it would come up. There's this new data registry that the Ministry of Lands has. It's been rolled out within Nairobi County to where you can go into eCitizen, put in an LR number, and it'll tell you the history of the land, who it belongs to, whether it's public or whether it's private.
Yes.
So somebody clearly dropped the ball. And it looks like Kenya National Highway Authority is determined to pay for that land either way, whether it's public or not. They have the money for it, it's in the budget. But clearly, government money should not be wasted. So I'll leave it at that.
Indeed, isn't it? Tommy, I want to get back at you again before I bring in a George this morning. Now, Tommy, so these are two organizations. We have the National Lands Commission, fine. We do have the Kenya National Highways Authority, fine. But then I think when somebody revealed, it looks as if there is a tussle now, because Kenya National Highways Authority is saying, we told you a long time ago, before you even said this. What do you read into that, Tommy?
Definitely, I do smell a rat.
Yes.
But the National Land Commission should be working hand in hand with the Ministry of Lands, because they should be able to access this registry. It should be able to reveal who it belongs to. And like we said, that new digital system is in place that is very easy to access. Anybody can access this online now.
Yes. George, let me bring you in. Is this in black and white terms corruption that has been unearthed?
Sorry, Elijah, this is coming on the backdrop of land corruption deals that
Yes.
we've had before.
Yes.
Remember, we had the Rwaka land scandal, where government paid money, almost 800 million for land that was purportedly government's land. The National Lands Act, Cap 300, stipulates what is public land and what is private land. And that is in the knowledge of anybody in the Ministry of Lands. That is in the knowledge of anybody at the National Land Commission. And I believe that information is available to the Kenya National Highway Authority. What we are seeing here, Elijah, is probably a coalition between the Kenya National Highway Authority and the National Land Commission to misappropriate public funds.
Yes.
Albeit somebody has not played ball to date. That is why you are seeing the back and forth between NLC and the Kenya National Highway Authority. I bet that this was a plan that had been orchestrated to be able to pay the 2-point-something billion shillings for land that is already public land. These ministries work hand in hand. I believe what is happening at the Ministry of Lands and what happens at the Ministry of Transport. They know what happens in either side. So you cannot stand and lie to me that Kenya National Highway Authority doesn't know that the land adjacent to Mombasa Road, both sides, is demarcated as land specifically for the Kenya National Highways. They're the ones who should be holding those the titles of those properties. Therefore, if they are telling us that they want to compensate themselves, then the next question you ask is, who are these individuals that are going to be compensated? Can we put names to these individuals that this 2.1 billion is going to go to? And at the end of the day, you will find that these individuals being compensated are either government officials or proxies of those government officials. So I think it is good that it has come out at this level, that government is trying to compensate itself, and therefore it needs to be stopped at this level and be investigated thoroughly so that such things don't reoccur again. Elijah, remember, this is not the first case that the government has purportedly or has tried to purchase land from itself. I've talked about the Roraka land scandal. You remember the Ngong Forest debacle, where government purportedly was compensating people for land that was hived off public forest. You remember the issues of the Karura land forest.
Yes.
If you remember the story of Wangari Maathai in her 80s as an activist, that she was fighting for some of this public land not to be misappropriated. Therefore, Elijah, my parting shot on this is that this transaction needs to be stopped, investigated, and whoever was pushing it at the government ministries or government departments needs to be accountable for such attempted corruption. That is my take, Elijah.
Pretty much, Effie, clear for us this conversation for NLC and the Kenya National Highways Authority this morning. But let's look at the strength of this new land registry, FA, that is digitized. Even at this point, we're even coming with a new land evaluation index, again, FA, that is supposed to sort of, they're saying, make that system strong and accountable. What are the loopholes, FA, when you look at the real estate sector in the country, especially when it comes to accountability and really knowing that every other person is within the system that has been introduced by the government?
Thank you for that question. What I will say is, looking at the land process generally, how we purchase land, the listing of land, differentiating between public and private land.
Yes.
And I will say we are in the take-off stage. There was a bit of lag in how we could identify a piece of land. So with the introduction of the National Land Management System, I will say we are now trying to head into the right direction, given that we still consider land to be a very important asset, and that's why you see a lot of matters surround the usage of land. So we are in the take-off phase. The only thing that needs to be done is to roll out the system effectively to all the counties, because now, from my understanding, it's within Nairobi metropolitan area. So rolling out the system within all the counties will at least clear the loopholes. And also there's the aspect of media, brokers in between land. This is also affecting land transactions and also causing a bit of corruption, or not corruption, but for lack of a better word, let me use the word conning when purchasing land. So it's important for that system to be rolled out for all the counties so that the remaining loopholes that exist are eliminated.
Pretty much. FA, thank you very much for taking your time to join us this morning. I have to bid you goodbye so I continue the conversation with the rest of the two gentlemen who are left behind.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Now, let's cross over then. Safaricom's policy of paying out 80% of its net profit will not change despite heavily investing in Ethiopian market. A consortium majority controlled by Safaricom is planning to invest 909.5 billion, let's put it in dollars, $8.5 billion in the network in 10 years, including the 90.9 billion, that's around 850 million US dollars license fee. Now, a section of analysts have raised fears that Safaricom could be forced to cut dividends to keep the Ethiopia operations running through a mix of debt and internal revenues. Now, Safaricom, through their chief financial officer, however, has reiterated that the dividend payout, which is pegged at 80% of net income for the year, will remain unchanged despite the Ethiopia investment. Now, Safaricom payouts have averaged 54.61 billion shillings annually in the last 6 years on sustained growth in profits, making it the single largest dividend payer in corporate Kenya. Let's look at Safaricom this morning. We're going to start on exactly what has been the performance in service revenue. And if you could jump there, Richie, if you can. Do we have it? Or we wait? Yes. There we go. All right, in terms of service revenue, financial year 2020-2021, you can actually see exactly where we are. It has been on a rising trend as well, and Safaricom actually were very clear to say that things are not really that bad again in 2021, because 2020 is when we had them go through those measures where you are actually able to transact for free on M-Pesa. Looks like they're back again. They're racketing up those numbers. Let's cross over to the next areas for Safaricom this morning in terms of Safaricom revenue composition. In terms of that, you will see mobile M-Pesa at 34% and voice revenue at 34% as well in financial year 2021. Let's cross over and see exactly what we look at them next in terms of that comparison again in terms of the service revenue in quarter 1 of 2021 versus quarter 2 of 2021. You will see that indeed quarter 2 was good for them, has been good for them, because across that board you can see that the numbers are on an increasing trend as well. So let's talk about percentage change in terms of mobile revenue, and you will see exactly under that mobile revenue you see voice revenue, despite it being at par with the M-Pesa revenue, you will see that it has been on a drop, a negative 4.6%, messaging revenue at negative 11.7%, and let's talk about M-Pesa revenue that was affected by that dip in 2020. They're now at negative 2.1%. Mobile incoming revenue at 11.7%. Other revenue sources, mobile based, they are at 7.5% increase. Good. So they have 3 increases: mobile data, mobile incoming revenue, and other mobile service revenue. Let me start with Tommy this morning. Tommy, they are saying, no, there is not going to be a change. We will continue to pay at 80%. Tommy, should they have changed it?
No, I'm glad that the CFO did it.
Tommy, are you saying that because you have an interest?
No, I do not. Let me be clear. I have no interest in Safaricom whatsoever.
Yes.
But it's people invest so that they can get returns. If Safaricom shareholders are conditioned to receive 80% return, that is excellent, because it provides confidence. Anybody who invests in Safaricom is assured that they will get that 80% dividend, and it's very encouraging.
Yes.
So also the expansion is a good thing, because it's more market. Possibility of more greater returns in a new market.
Yes. Tommy, look at the announcement that they made around this area. They said that the Kenyan staff is going to actually be involved in setting up the Ethiopia market. Is that why they are quite optimistic that in terms of the overall costs, they're going to manage it by still continue to pay the 80% dividend in terms of their net revenue?
That's part of it, but most of it, I think, in my opinion, is because their numbers are going back to normal.
Yes.
The financial services are growing exceptionally. The only drop was in the voice services, and that's picking back up. Now with the pandemic slowly showing its tail end, that's confident reason enough to be confident of better financial returns in future.
Pretty much. George,
yes.
I'm going to ask you the same question again that I'm putting to Randall this morning. George, have they changed it? I mean, they're the biggest in terms of corporate payouts. The other day, we just had equity for the very first time trying to attach a figure 30 to 50%. Safaricom at 80%. When you look at that, should they change it so that they channel some of those funds into the Ethiopian market? Because that investment, George, it is big, an investment in the Ethiopian market.
Elijah, I would want to agree with any analyst who thinks that Safaricom might want to cut their dividend payout in the short run to be able to finance their forays into the Ethiopian market. First things first, if you look at the capital structure of Safaricom as it is today, their total equity base is at around 137 billion. We are looking at a case where Safaricom wants to invest close to I think 111 billion in the Ethiopian market.
Yes.
How are they going to finance that? They have put across a debt equity mix where they're trying to get, I think, around 500 billion from American Sovereign Wealth Fund, that is DFC. So the question that comes to mind is that that is almost a half of the capital that is required to invest into the Ethiopian market.
Yes.
Where are they going to get the balance of the 500 billion? And they're saying that it is going to be pulled from a JV between Safaricom PLC and Vodacom, which is the holding company for Safaricom. And Vodacom has made it very clear that they are going to invest not more than 5% in this project. Therefore, the biggest bulk of the balance that is equity must come from Safaricom. And therefore, you ask yourself, where are they going to get this money in the short run? Remember, Elijah, that Safaricom has made around, I think, 62 billion shillings profits in 2019. They made 73.6 billion profit in 2020, and then 68.6 billion profits in 2021. Out of this profit that they made,
yes,
they have paid close to 80% year on year on dividends. That brings them a very low profit retention into their P&L. In fact, their retained earnings as it is today is at 96.5 billion. So you ask yourself, how are they going to raise the 500 billion? And the point that comes into my mind is either they will have to do a rights issue locally, or they'll want to go to their parent company to be able to fund a big percentage of this capital outlay. And the other question that comes of the debt that they're planning to DFC, how are they going to finance it? Those are the questions that you must answer. And that debt, financing that debt must come from their profits. And therefore, if Safaricom was to put to us a projected cash flow on how they are planning to finance this huge debt that they're going to incur, and at the same time still continue paying the 80% dividend payout, then we would be confident, we would be accurate to say that they are not likely to reduce their dividends payout to be able to survive in the Ethiopian market. Number two, Elijah, that I must emphasize is that when you go into a new market like Ethiopia, remember there are players there already, and therefore you might go there and start bringing in profit maybe the third or fourth year. I bet you that they might not be able to make money in the first, second, or third year. We are looking at the fourth year. So between now and the fourth year, How are they going to finance the operations in Ethiopia? How are they going to, to finance the debt that they're going to incur? The most likely avenue that they're going to touch is their profits. And when they do that, that means that the amount that remains for the shareholder will shrink a little bit or substantially, depending on how they play with their cash flow.
Yes. George,
Elijah, I want to also mention.
Yes.
Go on, Elijah.
George, just clear your sentiments, because I wanted to actually generally pick on your sentiments as well. Just clear your thoughts.
I wanted to say that Safaricom is a heavy cash-rich organization. If you look at their net operating cash flow, I think it accounts for over 60% of their net cash flow. Meaning the amount of money that they generate month on month or quarter on quarter is quite substantial. And therefore, I would still not have doubt that they'll still be making money, but the cash flows will drastically reduce, given that they'll be picking from what they already have to finance their forays into the Ethiopian market.
Pretty much. Now, George, let me come back to you on that as well, because we are not doubting the value of the Safaricom stock in the local bourse. No, we are not. We're still saying that, well, actually them saying they're going to invest in Ethiopia is still good news for the value of that stock. George, when they say that indeed they're quite sure that that is not going to change, and this investment of 909 billion, that's close to $1 trillion, George, on over 10 years. If you look at the options they've given us this morning on exactly where they can get that money and what they have to do to balance this, do you think that them saying that the local Kenyan staff is entirely going to help them run the Ethiopian franchise could be reason enough for them say that in terms of the operation costs in Ethiopia, we're going to reduce them drastically and say, well, we are not going to affect the dividends, if at all, that some of the operation costs were going to go into the staff?
Elijah, I doubt. I've been into the Ethiopian market. I was dealing with a bank in Ethiopia called Awash Bank.
Yes.
And if you look at the demographics of Ethiopia, with an East African company, Safaricom, going into that market, one, they'll have to invest very heavily in advertising. I bet you that they'll not pick Kenyan staff to go and run the Ethiopian market. Maybe they'll pick a few technical staff, but a bulk of the staff that they'll use in the Ethiopian market will be local staff. Number two, the Ethiopian market is 100+ million people, and if you look at the geographical dispersion of that population, it's quite huge compared to Kenya. And also, if you look at the infrastructure in Ethiopia, we are slightly ahead of Ethiopia in terms of infrastructure. Therefore, Safaricom will have to invest very heavily, one on staffing, two on advertising, and then three on infrastructure. That gives you the forecasted budget of around 1 billion USD or $1 trillion Kenya shilling. And that is what I think what Safaricom is trying to manage, or what the think tanks in Safaricom is trying to manage, is to put the investors in a mode where they don't think that they're losing value. I can tell you for sure that when this deal is eventually penned to paper, the value of Safaricom shares in the Nairobi bourse will eventually go up. And that means capital gains to the shareholders as it is today. But the dividend payout at the end of maybe 2021 or 2022 might be slightly lower than what we've known of it throughout the last 3, 4, 5 years, Elijah.
Pretty much. Let's take a short break. Once we come back, Tommy will be sticking with you. Let's talk about that free cash flow within Safaricom, which we do know again has been an issue. That has been some people say, why can't they take that money somewhere? Do they finally have a place to put that money? And we're talking about the free cash flow for Safaricom once we come back here on a Business AM. You're still watching Metropole Television. My name is Simba. Shortly.